isn't feeling really well today, so she'll be available for questions later on. But in the meantime, I get to give her a presentation. This is about Poker Alice. Hey boys, how about a game of faro? Lucky at cards, unlucky at love. Rarely do you find in history an educated gentlewoman. Poker Alice was religious her whole entire life, and she was an excellent marksman. She always kept her character and reputation on a high level while gambling in the frontier mining camps. Born Alice Ivers, February 17, 1851, in Sudbury, England, she was the daughter of a schoolmaster and taught marksmanship by her father. In 1863, she came to America and completed her education at a Virginia school for girls. Alice was a petite blonde with deep blue eyes, a fair complexion, and spoke with an English accent. Wouldn't you love to have met her? In the 1870s, the Ivers family traveled to Colorado and lived in a very historic setting of the country. Alice met and married a young engineer named Frank Duffield while they lived near the boomtown of Creede, Colorado. Mrs. Creede and Alice were the only women living there at one time. The young engineer Duffield was very busy, so Alice spent a lot of time playing solitaire. Occasionally, Frank and Alice went to the saloon or dance hall in town, and she sat by watching the men play cards. Alice's real interest was watching the men's faces as they played poker or faro. While at home, she studied her own face in the mirror, learning which facial moves would give your hand away. Once Frank allowed her to play in a poker game, and she won. Frank then teased her for calling her Poker Alice face, and the name stuck out, but other gamblers shortened it to Poker Alice. Tragedy struck. Frank was killed by a dynamite misfire in a mine tunnel. Although grieving, Alice needed to support herself. There were no schools to teach, so Alice decided to gamble. Alice was winning the little gold pokes full of shining dust. Faro is not an easy game. Dealing cards from a little box in pairs, then dealt in a winning or losing pile, players bet on the next card delivered from the box. All entertainment was in the bars and saloons in Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and the Black Hills of South Dakota. Alice moved from one boomtown mining camp to another as miners worked during the summer and gambled, but moved out in the winter months. Alice had little fear. She always carried a .38 or .45, thanks to her father, an excellent marksman who had taught her to shoot. Alice played or was hired by the saloon owner as a dealer. She was always honest, but refused to gamble on Sunday as this irritated some of the bosses. However, she refused to work on Sundays. In Silver City, New Mexico, Alice played faro and was winning consistently, which drew a big crowd of watchers. The dealer declared, "I'm finished, the bank is closed." Alice then moved into the dealer's seat and said, "The bank has reopened, please place your bets." The crowd applauded. And Alice won $6,000, which was a huge win. You know, that would be a pretty good sized win now. She then bought a ticket and went back east. Alice attended shows, ate in nice restaurants, and bought a trunk full of fancy clothes. Alice went through the winnings quickly. She bought herself a ticket back out west and had enough to stake herself in a game in the mining camp. Alice was now dressed as a beautiful young lady, playing cards and winning. Once at a losing game, she called a dealer and drew her gun. The dealer had been dealing off the bottom of the deck, so she demanded all of her money back, and he returned all she had lost. Most games were honest, but not this guy. About this time, Alice moved to the Cherokee Strip. She now had a new problem. Men didn't care for a women gambler. She changed her soft, polite manner, and she also changed her fancy wardrobe for a dark corduroy suit. Now calling her Corduroy Alice, she played on. Alice returned to Creede, Colorado. She built her own log cabin and worked for Bob Ford. Bob Ford was really disliked, while Alice was liked by everyone. So her working for him was a big benefit. Then a fire destroyed most of the town. It was rumored Alice had loaned Bob Ford the money to buy a new tent, saloon, and dance hall. And then shortly after, Bob Ford was killed. About this time, Alice moved to the Black Hills in her corduroy suit, took up smoking a cigar and wearing a campaign hat. Her hat is now the property of the city of Deadwood. Alice was very I can't say this word. Entrepreneurial. She made a trip to Colorado to buy a Himalayan cat. Alice was fond of the Himalayas. When in Colorado, she bought several feral cats and brought them back to Deadwood, selling the cats to other houses as they kept the rodents under control and to offer companionship. One day, Alice met with an unhappy, drunken gambler that accused another dealer named George Tubbs of cheating. The gambler was going to cut Tubbs' throat when a .38 came through the air, shattering his elbow. Tubbs was astonished to find out that the shot had come from Poker Alice. After this, Poker Alice and Tubbs kept an eye out for each other, which then boomed into a romance. Tubbs even gave Poker Alice a gift. It was a traveling box, quite decorated, and carrying a faro box shuffle and everything to work in the saloons. Tubbs was 10 years older than Alice, very tall and thin. Alice and George were married in 1906, and they both retired. They bought a small place 40 miles west of Sturgis, where they happily gardened and raised chickens. Tragedy came in 1910 when a blizzard hit and Tubbs developed pneumonia. Alice doctored him every way she knew, but he passed away. She then wrapped him in blankets in the barn for his body to freeze. When the storm was over, she placed Tubbs on a sled and went to Sturgis. She hawked her engagement ring to pay for his funeral expenses. Due to the blizzard and cold, it took a week to dig his grave. She stood by until the last rites were said. Alice was very lonely. She bought back her ring by gambling and moved to Sturgis, dealing faro. In 1912, she had a place of her own near Sturgis and had women to entertain the gamblers. On Sundays, she had Sunday school with lessons, as nobody worked on Sundays. She hired George Huckert as her companion, and he managed the garden, sheep, and chickens. She decided to marry him as it was cheaper than paying him wages. Huckett died a few months later, once again leaving Alice lonely. Alice has now lost her beauty, and her figure looked like a busted hay bale. It was then that she began to wear old army shirts and sweaters. Fort Meade soldiers were favorite visitors of Poker Alice's. Once after closing, a few soldiers tried to come in. As they got more demanding to come in and see the woman, Poker Alice fired a shot through the door, and it killed one of the soldiers. Alice was arrested and jailed, but they found that she had fired in protection of herself, so the jury found her not guilty. On returning home, she was arrested for running a house of ill repute. This time she was found guilty and convicted. However, the city of Sturgis petitioned the governor, who pardoned her. She had to close her house, and Fort Meade forbid the soldiers to go to her house. Alice then returned to raising chickens in a garden. She at one point even tried to sell her traveling gift box to the mailman to get funds. Sadly, I don't know what happened to it. Age and health were now issues plaguing her, and Alice passed away from issues with her gallbladder at age 70 in February 27th, 1930, in the Rapid City Hospital. Alice was buried in Sturgis, below St. Martin's. Alice's house was then moved. Roy Healy of the Horseless Carriage Museum purchased the .38 caliber gun found under the house when moved. They had never found the weapon at the time the soldier was killed. Jim Aplan later purchased the gun, and it's in Peg's collection. Alice left a colorful will. She specifically disinherited each and every one of her relatives and kin for the reason that they didn't contribute to her welfare and happiness during the declining years, nor have made any effort to inquire as to her welfare for a great many years. She left a few personal items to her lawyer and his wife. She left her chickens to neighbors. Of most interest was a set of Washington Irving's works and a set of Louis Muhlbach books. This was a challenge, as Louis Muhlbach was Clara Munt, a German writer of historical fiction, and the set is 18 volumes. Alice led an interesting life, kept to herself, and there are not many books written about her. I hope this presentation has enlightened you about this historic woman of the West. Are there any questions? Peg has the answers.
Is there any questions?
I just wondered, where was her husband buried in Sturgis? Is he at St. Martin's also?
I did not find that out. I'm sorry.
And she didn't have any children?
No. But when they moved from Sturgis, they had 7 adopted children that were like foster children they raised. But she actually never had her own child. Anyone else?
What's the picture on the screen?
That's a headstone below St. Martin. Give next view. There you can see close up. I did not know till study that she buried St. Martin's.
Jerry Terrence said he had poker Alice's poker table, and it wasn't pretentious at all. It was like a 4-chair table, and I couldn't believe that could be the poker table because it didn't look like one at all. Like today, you've got all kinds of slots, 8 people playing. But anyway, that's what he said. Well, there's a picture on some of the memorabilia where she's playing with 2 or 3 other people, and there's a table just exactly like Jerry said was.
That would make sense. Poker Ellis, after engagement Cherokee Strip, never want anything fancy. Dresses out, furniture out, everything plain. Corduroy green. She only do camouflage and sweaters later.
When was that picture of that headstone taken? And when was that her headstone? Because my brother said to me, we would go up to St. Aloysius Cemetery, we have friends there. He said, have you ever seen Alice's grave? And I said, no. And he said, well, come and I'll show you. So we walked up directions aren't right, but we were on the edge of the cemetery. And he said, now don't step over too far or you'll fall off the cliff and you'll be in the railroad track. And it was a flat stone, it wasn't elevated, and it said Alice Tubbs. Well, then several years later, after this, I was up there and I thought, well, I'll go up and say hello to Alice. And that flat headstone was gone. And that's why I wondered how this, when this
This
monument was built.
picture stone, probably 25 years old.
Yeah, because that isn't, there's nothing where she was buried.
And was problem water undermine? So one picture shows it. But they have to, yeah, I don't know who. Because this stone now,
She's right though, I used to be the sexton of that cemetery. The original stone wasn't as big as the base on this one. It was just a little stone,
It was flat,
probably
completely flat. It
Foot
wasn't
wide.
elevated.
8 inches deep and 6 inches high. That's the one that was always there, this has been put up since I left.
okay. I was Fort Meade and working on it. And that's when we take pictures, so 25 years ago.
I left 30 years ago. So.
Okay. He's trying to make me older. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I just have something to share. My husband's relatives were Bestians, and the story of the family, we've heard from other people that on Christmas Eve, Poker Alice always put $100 bill in the collection. Has anybody ever heard that? That's kind of sweet. Yes.
Poker Alice, very benevolent. I try to not put facts can't find in story. She also very political. And she have money at one time to buy a place, do this, do that. But she always helped Sturgis. Kate saw that, say she very benevolent.
Our dad lived close to Poker Alice. He said kind of across the creek. And he said one time he was out playing and he said, "Hi, Poker Alice." And she said, "That's Mrs. Tubbs to you."
She very proper English lady, even if religious, so it would not surprise me.
My grandmother was a little girl when Poker Alice had her establishment down there. And I asked her if she ever knew Poker Alice. And she said, well, yeah, she'd go down there and hang around outside the house. And if Poker Alice saw her, she'd come out and give her candy money just so she'd go away.
Anything else?
Was that actually her house that they moved from the creek up here?
Yes.
Were Poker Alice and Kate sold at Friends? Were they acquaintances or friends?
In same social circle.
Okay.
My Aunt Cecil, that was my mother's oldest sister, used to fix Poker Alice's hair by the week.
And she said, you know, the pictures of Poker are not very good. She said she was really quite attractive, and she had beautiful hair and pretty blue eyes. And Aunt Cecil came to St. John's Hospital when Bruce and I were born many, many years ago. And she said, Mary, I've got to go see Poker because she's not going to make it. And when Dad took us home, about 3 days after we got home, Poker Alice died. Well, we were the first twins born in St. John's Hospital in Rapid. And we were born in 1930, January 1930. So I wonder about that February on there. I think it ought to be January. Because that's when she passed away. Yeah. I seen copy will and stuff, everything say February. So I don't know.
Well, I can't remember because I was just little.
You mentioned that Poker Alice disinherited all her relatives. And there's a record that shows that she left some of her estate to Mrs. Joe Keffler. And Mrs. Joe Keffler lived in Iowa, but she came back and forth to Sturgis to buy horses and pigs, and quite a lady, I guess. But I don't know what the relationship was, but there's a record of Poker Alice leaving some of her stuff to Mrs. Joe Keffler.
I think had to do with lawyer friend Deadwood. All personal things go lawyer friend, books, sewing machine, etc. I had copy of original will. Noli Mummy have last interview with Poker Alice and then write book on it. I have copy. A book is very rare. And Richardson's publish her obit.
It was part of the family folklore that one of the altar boys was served at her funeral. And I don't know if it's true or not, but it makes nice folklore.
I can remember listening to the controversy about tearing down Poker Alice's house. It was right on Bear Butte Creek. And the city was going to tear it down. And people said, oh, no, 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 no. Well, we'll sell it. They said, we'll sell it. And so, a man named Huckert, no relation whatsoever, bought it for $1. Yes. Moved it up to Junction. But that doesn't look like the shack, because I can remember Bruce and I used to go down to Bear Butte Creek. And Mother said, don't you get in that creek. You can go down and look at it, but don't get in it. Well, the sewer system in Sturgis was nil, you know. So anyway, we saw Poker Alice's shack, and it was just not very good at all. Yeah.
I think she had more than one house down there.
Okay. Yeah.
First one, I think tar paper shack. But improve.
Well, his house on Junction doesn't look like what we saw.
I think she only lived main floor. Yes.
My son-in-law grandmother lived in Poker Alice's house, and his mother grew up in that house. And there was many uh, improvements done while they were living there, and then afterwards. Of course, there was no indoor plumbing or anything, and he tells about his grandmother, going out to the outhouse out by the creek, and then they did add a bathroom, which is in the house up here now, and they also added to the kitchen, because when the kids don't remember a lot, but my son-in-law's sister was older than him. She was the oldest one, and he was the youngest. And they said they could remember going down to see their grandma and going upstairs, and that was where they stayed when they came to visit her. And it was a very different house than it is now. Yeah. But and I do have some pictures of it when it was different, much older.
I think when Poker Alice go back east, she get ideas and bring back and then have them put in house and house grow and improve.
Of course, this was after she was gone by many years, because they were in their probably, I can't remember, 50s maybe. It's when but they were the last people to live it, because while they were there was when the 72 flood came. I think it was a 72. Anyway, the flood came and it went through the house, and it was, yeah. And so they moved out then, because they were there before. So they were the last people that lived in the house before it was torn and before it was moved up here.
Also, I left something out when I typed for Diana. Was 2 soldiers shot. 1 bad leg, other killed. Man with bad leg, his family want house destroyed. Write letters to Crows, Soldat, Steele to get house destroyed.
I just wanted to be convinced that she supported herself all of her life. She never seemed, from what you were saying in your story, it seemed like she always took care of herself financially.
Yes.
As an independent woman. And then the second time she got married, she married the person, so she didn't have to pay wages. I mean, I thought that was hysterical. But she must have been a very resourceful and independent kind of person.
I think she had money from gambling all the time. But I think educated woman keep track of it. Because when she, right before she married him, had money buy land, house, everything, and get 7 foster kids. But many times she was quitting, go back east, build cabin, Colorado. Colorado significant. Creed, where Bob Ford killed, etc. Lots history, Creed, Colorado, when she was there. But her comment always, not kids mining camp to teach. So I think she educated woman
and keep track of these things. I think maybe older years not have money, but have lots money her life.
Thank you for all the questions. I think this was a very informative presentation today. Thank you for letting me do it.